All right, we've got audio, and now we can see ourselves here, so let us begin. Shabbat Shalom, my most esteemed friends, honorable judges, LV tribe, and everyone else accompanying us. On this rather precious day of Shabbat, cloudy, they say that in a bit it might rain a bit. It rained yesterday, but it's rather precious, the environment here from California, the US of A, today being the 5th of Etanim. We've entered into the 7th month, which is also called Tishri, of the year 5994 in our best calculations from creation. This corresponds to the 27th day of September of the year 2025. September's on its way out, and we shall study the last chapter, at least for now. We're gonna leave this series and we'll start up another one. The last chapter of the Spirit of the Feast, chapter 50, and it's just gonna be a simple summation of what we've studied, give or take, of what we studied during this whole 50 chapter series that started exactly 1 year ago. We studied many concepts of so many things, and since I didn't want to leave it in 49, I prefer the name 50, and we are precisely already in the midst of the autumn feast of what the calendar that Yahweh gave to Israel is. So then we'll do one more chapter, number 50, which is a summation, basically, and next Shabbat we shall continue with what we left 1 year ago, that I have questions for, that I have to answer over a year ago, which are wisdom and discipline, which is the study of the book of Proverbs, which is rather phenomenal because we talk about so many things. You can ask me questions, and I'll retake those again, so then all of you that want to ask questions of anything have way so many questions that 1 year ago you asked me, and when I say way too many, I have over 20 or 30 questions, and if not more, that I left written in the last chapter to be able to add them back later. So then from next Shabbat on, we go back to wisdom and discipline, a subject that we like a lot because it's the art of wisdom, of how we should act in many different times, how to face life and all the rest. So then today we shall have the last chapter of the Spirit of the Feast. Very well. I'd like to greet those who have had a birthday during this week that just passed, which are as follows: Graciela Janet Brevis, Chile; Katia Sanchez, El Salvador; Juan Calderon, Colombia; Petra Sandoval, the US of A; Rosa Aguilera, Chile; Jose Augusto Lombardi, Peru; Moa Sarroche da Silva, Brazil; Richard Sangrone, Ecuador; Cecilia Lobo David, Brazil; Ivan Jamit Medina Fonseca, Colombia; Matia Acuña Araya, Chile; Maria Isabel Chaclan, Guatemala; and Uriel Roblero. A very happy birthday, Uriel. He is on his 12th birthday, and today he chose the food today, an Argentinian asado. They brought ribs, skirt, steak, and also some chicken. That's what you brought, right? Chicken sausage. We're gonna eat so delicious, which makes this subject to be very short. Why? Because at 3 Boca Place, we're going to talk a little bit about that. A very happy birthday to every one of you. A great big hug on behalf of all the Eternal Truth to each and every one of you. We'll be celebrating Uriel's birthday and also all of yours in your honor. So then here we shall eat excellent, hyper, mega great. Boca Place today against Defensa y Justicia. In the field of Defensa y Justicia against Boca Juniors at 3 o'clock of my time in a little bit. I just wanted to tell you For those of you that saw them play last time, they played the best game that it's been years that they haven't played like that. Passing, looking for the goalpost. We just needed a couple more goals, but we played as a team. It really looked like so beautiful soccer. The problem is that we don't have a coach because Mr. Miguel Angel Russo is sick. He's sick. And I don't know how the president of Boca, Juan Roman Riquelme, keeps him there. It's bad for him. It's bad for the club. There are things that I just don't understand, because if there's a president that cannot do their work, he should be replaced by someone else immediately. Russo has been hospitalized last week because he got what they said he had a urinary tract infection of 3 or 4 days. And as soon as he got out, he was able to direct the team. That was last week. This week he was hospitalized as soon as the game ended, and he got dehydrated. It's what they tell me. Remember that Russo suffered or is suffering cancer. He's got prostate cancer. He's 70 years old. Can't remember exactly what his age is, but around there. But it's those types of sicknesses that he's going through. He suffered all kinds of chemotherapies and all the rest. That's why he can't speak well. He can't walk well. He can't express himself well. He falls asleep in the games. They had to let him know that we just scored the second goal because his mind is on something else. He's drugged constantly. So I feel bad for him. I had lots of respect for him. He's not in a condition to direct the team. And now Boca are in the crossroads that they can't kick him out. And because if they kick him out and if something happens to the guy, it'll be like, oh, it's your fault. And also, and if they don't kick him out and something also happens, it'll be, it's your fault because you didn't kick him out. And so they're in the crossroads that for me, it really isn't. We should kick him out immediately and say, look, we'll keep paying you. We'll give you a different position in the club. Come help us in the part of management, of helping with each of the players. But we'll keep your contract, but you can't direct. You can come every day. We'll give you a different position, and you just fix it like that. That's how you fix things. But we're in this dilemma, and Boca lost. After having played excellently, they got tired. There are 5 changes. You have to do the 5 changes that help the team. When you see that the team is tired, because you have to switch it up. No, they made some changes there at the end, and for me, they kicked out the best player in my opinion, Brian, right? Brian Aguirre. They kicked him out. He had to pay for the broken glass. I like the way the guy plays. He's young. They're giving him a chance of actually a mobility on the right side. He gave dynamism. All those things were reduced to naught because they put another player who's Velasco, which is like seeing nauseous. It sounds like seeing nauseous in Spanish. That's not a player for Boca. He'll never be. That's the problem when you choose things wrong. To see nauseously is he did everything wrong. We needed changes immediately. What did they do? They tied, and they won it as a miracle because our goalie went to look for a ball that he didn't have to go to. And he was completely lost out there, and by miracle they didn't score us. I was even more upset that even if we had lost, to play well and to tie, it's like losing. Aside from the fact that we didn't play a lot, since everyone else had tied or lost, we threw 2 points away. And we didn't lose 3 by a miracle. And then the joy came when River played. The Joy played, they lost. It was against Atletico. It was such a shame, such a shame. I'm not going to talk about that. That gave us a joy that it's like, whatever, these guys, these Masons lose. That gives more joy when, on Wednesday, they played for the Copa Libertadores. They faced the best team of Brazil, at least of now, that is Palmeiras, Verdão. The Palmeiras plays now as a non-Brazilian team. Maybe those who understand about soccer, they understand that in Brazil they play soccer in like all the details that people like, and the joy, all the kinds of things that they like. They don't play it too seriously. The Argentinians play more seriously. You don't play around with the ball. You don't make another movement extra to score or to do a little twist or jump. No, you do it effectively. And the Palmeiras plays that way. They seem to be an Argentinian team, is what I'm trying to say. They don't look like a Brazilian game. They played in the Chickenstein, in the Mason Monumental, and they kicked them so bad. They handed it to them. I've never seen a Dominion like that. Not because they were so good, because they're good. They're good. They play very well. But the Chickens, they played so horribly, thanks to their coach. They put 5 defenders. I've told you that I hate the 5 defenders. It's 3, it's 5, it's 5. Why has it worked in some teams? Because there are teams with a line of 3 and 5. They've made it very well. They have special players, and it's worked for them. They have to be exceptional players that everyone knows what to do. So then it goes from being a team with 5 defenders when they attack, and with only 3 defenders when the team attacks. So then out of the 3 that are below in the area, per se, and the 2 side ones, they go up. So when the team attacks, that defends a 5, it's like 3 defending, and as they attack them, those 2 side ones that come down, and they have 2 defenders. That and all, I don't like it. There are people for whom it works very well. For Racing, it works well. For Barcelona, it worked well. There are European teams that it works well for. For Argentina, with our coach, sometimes it's been applied and it has worked before, but you need lots of practice for every worker to know, every player to know what they're doing. You can't just all of a sudden want to do it. Hey, let's go ahead and play 5, and they all play like ass. What happened to us with Gago? We went to the River field and we got chickenized. That's why he was fired. With 5 defenders, we really didn't do too well, and they scored on us, and it was the goalie's fault. It was completely the goalie's fault. Even if it seems like a huge goal, I mean, you have to see the play. And they really dominated us completely. We have 5 defenders that didn't know how to defend. They didn't know how to defend. It's not that it's so horrible, the line of 5. If they don't know how it works and they have the practice, it becomes something that goes against, because you lose the midfield. And the midfield for me is fundamental of a soccer field. Now, when you weaken the midfield, then you're going to have to defend more in the back. No matter if you put 5, 8 defenders, if you have them all playing in your own area, you have to stop it and push the ball forward. That's why it's so important. The midfield is so important, and the attack. I have the philosophy that the best defense is the attack, not to give more defenders. The way I personally like is a line of 4. I'm not saying that a line of 3 and 5 doesn't work. I personally like the line of 4. What did River do? They for my delight and those watching, he used the chicken act of 5 line against the Palmeiras. They danced on them so hard that they themselves will accept that if Palmeiras could score 5-0 the first half, it was okay. They couldn't say anything because it was all Palmeiras. It was all Palmeiras. Even with 5 defenders, because of playing like chickens. The problem of Palmeiras is that they scored only 2. They scored only 2 when they should have scored even more. And in the second half, Gallardo changed. He took out the 5 line, put a 4 line, changed many different players, and the game paired up pretty much. And then at the end, by luck, with a huge ass like that whole field, then this guy, what's his name? Matias Cuartas, the 4th class player, he's a 4th class defender. He shot at the goal and it switched, it ricocheted, the goalie couldn't catch it, and a goal. It was 2-1. What a gift. These dumb Brazilians, they should have won 4-0. And then the series would be closed. Quarterfinals in the Copa Libertadores, they gave it life because River scored 1 goal when they should have just goaled River. And a week passed. River went to go play in Del Verdao field, and River didn't use a line of 5, a line of 4 they used. And with the line of 4 and playing in a better way, it was a very good work, a very good game, and in less than 10 minutes, River scores 1-0, and they tied the series. They had lost 2-0, and now 1-0, now it's 2-2, and they go to penalties. River played pretty well, and at the end of the first time, they leave a Colombian player that they paid so much money for, they leave him alone against the goalie. He doesn't know how to resolve, and he just ricochets off the goalpost. I mean, what a disaster. I mean, I suffered, and then wow, they made me happy that day, because if River would score, it would be complicated, because the Brazilians have something. Once you score 1 or 2 on them, it's as if they really lose the spirit. They don't play like anything. They no longer sing. They start to whistle at them. They lose themselves. The Brazilians have to be winning, and they're doing their salsa. If they lose, forget it. Forget it. Just forget it. To them, what happened? They almost score on the second goal. On the second time, it was pretty. They fought well. The arbiter was on the side of River. Even if they say the contrary, he would do everything in favor of River. He should have kicked out River players that he didn't. I mean, all kinds of things happened in that game. All kinds of things. And in the end of it all, when 10 minutes were left, goal. In a misattention of River, Verdão scored. And that would sentence the series. Because from going from 2-2, it was 3-2. It was 3-2. Then afterwards, a penalty was charged at the end. Goal. And then another goal from Palmeiras because of a penalty that it was for a direct red card, but they give him a yellow. A second yellow. He should have been kicked before Mr. Acuna. I'm just talking to the people that watch the game. He should have been kicked out way before. It was a very direct red, and they give him a yellow. This was the second yellow and a red one. That would have been a direct red, but either way, they kicked him out. The Palmeiras goal, and that is how the series was 3-1. It was 3-1. No, pardon me, 2-1. And when a minute was left, another super goal, impressive. I think it was from Flaco Lopez, an Argentinian, I believe, if I remember correctly. Palmeiras scores such a goal, and they ended 3-1, plus the goal that they had over there. It was 4-2. No wait, 5-2. It was 5-2. 3-1 in Brazil, 2-1 in Argentina, 5-2. A 3-goal difference. Wow, what a joy, because actually they don't deserve to win any Libertadores. The aura that they placed on their beloved coach, that for me, he's not even a good coach, Marcelo Gallardo, they have him as a god. They made a statue. They made him a statue at the entrance of the monumental field, and in the part of the pants, in the masculine genitals, they put a huge bulge, like huge balls. Go and look up the image. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Because you look at his pants and you see such a protuberance that is enormous. Let's say it's the dream of many men. Why did they do that? Because according to them, that is what it took to win against Boca and Madrid and blah, blah, blah. Everything they say. That's why I enjoy a lot that a guy that they make a statue when he's alive, obviously things have to go bad for them. You can't make a statue for them while they're still alive. And even starting with a game that should not have been played in Madrid. That game should have never been played in Madrid. They should have been given to Boca automatically, because when we played that game in the real time that it should have been played, Boca got to the river field in the bus that was taking the players, and the people of River threw stones at the bus, and the team ended up in the hospital. A Boca player almost lost an eye because the glass was broken and it got into his eye. We couldn't even get to the field of the chickens. Any other team, they would have given the game to Boca, like what had happened 2 or 3 years prior to Boca. In the game that we played precisely against them, somebody, it was Diaz, he was a baker, we don't know if he was from Boca or from another one. He threw pepper gas, and the River players were affected a little bit in their tunnel, a little bit of pepper gas. And they said they said that we don't want to play the second time. And what happened? The CONMEBOL gave River the triumph, and that's it. It's over. We never again played it, because the players had a little bit of pepper gas, and they gave River the game, the win. When we went to their field, and they broke our bus that was carrying the players, and they cut players that ended up in the hospital. They didn't play the game. They didn't give the points to Boca. They said, "Oh no, let's now play the game in Madrid." The end of the Copa Libertadores in America played in Spain. I mean, inconceivable. We're talking about the Libertadores of America, of whom from Spain, and we're going to play where? In Spain. It's inconceivable. How is it that the president of Boca, that I believe was Angelici or something, well, whatever. I used to not watch soccer back then. At that time, how he allowed that? No, Boca should have fought the points in that championship. That Boca Libertadores should have been for Boca. They gave a chance for River to play after they break our bus and hurt our players, and then we play in Madrid. And then the chickens say, Boca died in Madrid. No, Boca didn't die in Madrid. You died, you fucking filthy ass chickens, and you used a jersey that said resurrection. When you use a resurrection jersey, means that those that were dead were you. So the ones that died was River, not Boca. Boca never died in Madrid. They just lost a final that should not have been played in Spain, and should have never have been played, because the points were already of Boca. And there's nobody from River can argue me that. You can all fuck off. How happy that River lost. Going back home crying. For the Verdão, a great big applause for the Palmeiras that sent the Masons crying home. Very well. What joy. Crying home. Very, very well. Very well. And I hope that Racing this Thursday, in the day of our independence, can win against River and kick him out of the Argentinian Cup. It should have been one after the other. And then tomorrow, for them to lose against, it should be one against the other. That is what River deserves. We have to win today. Very well. People are telling, why do you talk about soccer? Well, I talk about soccer because many of you and me, we like it. And aside for that, it has to do with life. Very well. The Jewish community, exactly in the same day as we, I still don't understand this why, because they don't notice about the moon. They have a calendar that's made already. They celebrate it. Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is not Shom Teruah. It is not the day of trumpets. It is the day of the New Year. Why? Because they changed the name to the feast. And they said, for us, the calendar changes. So then they went from the year 5,785, which is what they live, to 5,786. When we the small greeting of Yom Teruah, they were celebrating a New Year's, the year 5,786. Absolutely out of place. The year is not celebrated precisely in this date. It was in Aviv, when the creation of the world was, when the spring begins. That is when you celebrate it. We really don't care about it. I mean, let them celebrate whatever they want. Now, I've taught this once before, and I'll teach this again. The Jews and the wise Jews, because they prevent so many things, they took from their calendar 210 years. Those 210 years is how they count how many years they were as slaves in Egypt. So then, by taking those 210 years away, for many motives, some say that it is to erase that they were in slavery. You see how when Yeshua talked to them, they said, we've never been slaves. Where did they get that? But they said, we've never been slaves. Of course you were slaves in Egypt. But they tried to delete that history of slavery, so they took 210 years from the calendar. And others say, and I've heard this by themselves, that the greatest motive that the wise men thought of is that by reducing 210 years, what they reduce is the anxiety and the waiting for the Messiah, because they know that the Messiah has to appear around the year 6000. When they enter into the Shabbat, that they enter this correctly. We enter into a different stage. We enter into the Shabbat, and for all that, the Messiah has to have appeared already. So then, if they keep that calendar exact, the whole people, if they were now, this is 5,786 plus 210 that they took away. It gives us a total number of, they should be celebrating the year 5,996, which means, look, there's a year and a half of difference, because we are in 5,994. We changed it in Aviv. They changed it before. We have a year and a half difference. They're ahead of us. It would be convenient for us. So then actually they're in the year 5,996 with only 5 years left in order for them to enter the new millennium. So then if they were to have this date as real, what they say that it would cause is complete despair in all of the Jewish people that celebrate that the coming of the Messiah is imminent. They would even stop working because they know that it's imminent. The Messiah has to be here already. He has to be present before the entrance of the coming century, which is the millennium, the new millennium, the Shabbat. So then that would put them into a huge problem. And the wise men said, you know what, we're going to do something. Take off 210 years. The people are always going to have to understand that the coming of the Messiah, it's still 200 years away. It'll be by surprise. It's not going to affect anyone. They're not going to be waiting for him anxiously. So they use that logic, which is the logic they have, to take 210 years away. The reality is that we're too close, right about to enter the time of the 6,000 years. We're very close of entering into the new millennium. Once we enter into the new millennium, this creation should change because it's prophesized. So then, I want you to know that the Jewish real calendar is in the year 5996. The Karaites have a calendar that's even different, and I think they're even a year ahead. I think one more year ahead of them. Make it equal or 1 year ahead, but they did not take away. But the Karaites are a very small group. Who cares about them? A very small group of Jews that do not accept the Talmud. They only use the Torah. They don't read the Talmud. They don't accept it. They say that it's not their guide. They have their own rules. The Karaites are in the year 5996 or 97. Either way. For us, we're in the year 5994 and a half. We have 6 more months and we enter into 5995. We have to have patience. He that persevereth until the end, the same will see greater things if we continue on in this. I don't want to say this fight or battle. It's not a battle, but in this mission that we have. I have forgotten to have presented this, that I gave it to myself. It was cheap. It was like $8. So I bought it because I like the Rubik's Cube, and I'm not going to undo this one. This one's even more difficult to do because there are faces that only have to have one position. I have this type, and it is difficult. It's a lot easier in the colors than this one, aside from the fact that you lose yourself here. You don't know where the fuck those pieces go. They completely make you dizzy. I could solve it if I would lock in and invest time. We have Batman. We have Batman here. I liked it. Batman. We can take that out. And it's a Rubik's Cube right there. That's the Batman. It's a Rubik's Cube with Batman's face on it. So we've got Batman. I liked it. I was like, oh, I'm going to buy it for me. So cute. The Batman here and Mr. What's this guy's name? The Joker. This is the Joker. We have Joker here. Poor Joker. Oh, his problems and traumas. He ended up that way. I comprehend Joker. He became evil because of what he lived in life. So we have the Joker and Batman. Loved it. So we've got both of them there. They're there. I liked it. It was a gift to myself. It was, there we have it. And we have Lady Justice. We have Back to the Future. And we have the flat earth, of course. We have the flat earth. Because the earth is flat. So then, I didn't want to forget about that. This Thursday is Yom Kippur. And Yom Kippur, one of the feasts. Yom Kippur, we celebrate our independence. And it'll be our first year of independence. We're going to get together here. And I believe that, not that I believe, we're going to do a live greeting. It won't be like a subject or anything. It'll be live where I'm going to read the new ones that have been added themselves to the list as adherents. Adherents of what we signed last year. So then, I'll greet you in the Day of Independence this Thursday. I think it'll be, I calculate that it'll be like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I'll confirm later, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon. I'll be live, say greeting, I'll read the list. Maybe I'll read the document again that we signed to remind you that we signed last year. That is precisely our independence, because we are becoming independent of the power of which we were subjugated to. It's not that we are reneging against God, not in the very least. We're following His own instruction. His instruction is that we place all the guilt upon Him, precisely, and He will go for a time to the desert. It is his plan. It's not my plan. It's not rebellion. Rebellion would be not to do that. Rebellion would be to be a Christian. Once you read the Bible, you understand what the plan of God is, and we are following the plan of God to that letter. I don't want you to have not in the very least of doubts that we're not in rebellion against God. We're following his own plan. Those who are in rebellion against God are those that are waiting for him to come back and save them, for a Jesus to come that does not exist, some rapture that will never happen. How many thousands were waiting for it like 2-3 days ago and it didn't happen? They sold their properties. They were joyful, they had visions, signs, and they had dreams, and that they heard the trumpets, that Jesus presented themselves to them. They saw themselves elevating themselves, and they did everything as possible to convince their non-believer family members, and nothing happened. Who are in rebellion? They are. They don't know that they're in rebellion. I'm referring to a rebellion of the irony of life. They don't know that they're against the plan. The true plan of Yahweh is to give this creation that he made into the hands of someone. That is the true plan. And to say, blame me, I've done this with a purpose, and that to later on we'll continue to develop the purpose of God, because there are many things to try to understand that we're not going to understand it entirely until he explains it to us better. But there are many things, way too many things. We don't have any hate against God. Let that be clear. It's just that we're understanding his plan. And his plan is to say, we want our inheritance. You have said for us to blame all the guilt upon you and all the sins upon you, then it all goes upon you. It's not that we want to kick you out, really, but actually that you say that you rest and you leave. That's the way it is. And we have to send you to the desert, into a place of rest. That's all we've done. Maybe some have not understood this. They thought that I'm teaching, because sometimes they misinterpret, that we have to hate God, we have to detest him. No. It's just that it's not what I taught. Even if I say, accursed be thy name, exactly. Because we have to do a different psychology to the one that we've been applying during our whole life. That was to praise God, to obey him. Now God says, no, you have to change, because this is about to change. 6,000 years will be my kingdom, and I'll hand my kingdom over to my son. So then you have to come out of the religious programming. You have to come out from the praise toward me, because I no longer want that praise. I want you to understand that everything I've done goes way past your comprehension, but I want you to see that it was really evil. And that's the name I call myself. Unto Israel, the father is the assassin, the main one from the very beginning, and lying and deceitful. I'm not saying it, he says it. I want you to understand it, because you're not going to understand it otherwise. Later you'll understand many of different things, of why other things and all the rest, but that is the fundamental, and that is what we have been fulfilling. Last year, during Yom Kippur, we put all the guilt of entire humanity upon his head. And that highlighted our independence. For that very reason, on Thursday, we will have 1 year. In that year, we'll celebrate it, and we'll celebrate it the way we diagram things. Because what is the spirit of the feast? Well, in summation, the spirit of the feasts. What are the feasts? Moed, feast in Hebrew, Moadim, feasts. What are the Moadim? The Moadim literally means the signal time. That's what it exactly says in Hebrew. The signal time. Signal for what? Signal to fulfill many things. We as human beings have never invented a day to later celebrate it. We do things that sometimes we don't even notice we do them, and when the time passes and with the years they say, remember what we did? Let's celebrate that. For example, when they sign a constitution of a country and say from here on out, we're going to be celebrating. No, they don't even think about that. They signed a constitution or whatever, and the time comes, They say, hey, when did we sign this? Oh, it was on this date. Hey, let's celebrate it from here on out. That the independence is celebrated that was signed this time ago. When somebody presents a flag, because they made a flag for a country, they don't say, today's the day of the flag. No, they don't say that. This is the flag, we're going to use it, the people accept it, oh, it's great. They adopt it, time passes, and then they say, we need a time of the flag. When it was presented, so they choose the day, and so we have a day that is signaled to celebrate the day of the flag. We do things that way. We don't design the feasts before they happen. After they happen, we look back and we say, it's a good day to celebrate. You understand what I'm saying, right? God did it differently. Nothing had absolutely happened, and then he says, look, I have 7 signal dates, 8 of them, if we add the Sabbath, without adding 2 that I added. But I have 7 dates plus the Sabbath. You don't even know what you're going to be celebrating, but those are the feasts that are going to be in the calendar. With time, you'll fulfill that date, but you'll start to celebrate it first before fulfilling it. We, as human beings, have never done that. Mother's Day was not invented before a mother existed. No. Once many mothers existed, we came up with the dates. We said, hey, why don't we have a Mother's Day? Okay, that's fine. But a mother exists first in order to celebrate the day. It's not that the day exists to invent a mother. No. Yahweh, the Creator, put 7 feasts, which up until today, people don't know what they're for. One here and there could hit the date with what it means because it was fulfilled in history of Israel. And others actually have no idea what they mean. God told them, look, you have the Sabbath. Time to keep the Sabbath. Why? Because in 6 days you shall work and you will rest one. Why? Because God made the world in 6 days and rested on the 7th day. That is the reason, for that very reason, because God made the world in 7 days and he rested on the 7th day. Yes, but what does that mean? What it means is that the Sabbath is a practice of something that has not taken place, because the Sabbath has never taken place. The Sabbath represents the weekly Shabbat, which is the millennial, which is the 7th millennium. Every time we gather together on the Sabbath, we're celebrating with faith that feast will take place. The only reason for a Sabbath to exist is that a millennium will exist that we'll call the 7th millennium that we are about to enter. So then, a clear demonstration that Yahweh has placed appropriate times in advance before they would take place in order for us to celebrate them and practice them. The Jews and some Christians say, no, the feasts, they do back up what I'm saying. The feasts are a practice. They're a practice so that when the fact comes, we are precisely in tune with the practice. And they're very correct in certain things about the feast. Very well. The Shabbat, I've already said it's never been fulfilled. We celebrate the Shabbat because the Shabbat is a feast for man and by man that represents only eternity. I'm not talking about the 7th millennium only. It's the 7th millennium, and then it's not that it is fulfilled in 6 more days in the 7th millennium. I don't believe it's that way. Maybe there's some truth, but we would have to see another 6,000 years to see if the other millennium and the other week, it'll be something very special. Doesn't matter. For now, we see it as the last millennium. It not only represents 1,000 years, but 1,000 years eternally. Let's look at it that way. Second feast, or first feast of the commonly called, let's take the Shabbat out, first feast, which is a Pesach, which means Passover, which means the leap over. The Creator told Israel, you're going to have to celebrate every 14th of Aviv a feast that will be called Pesach, because that feast I will leap over. Nothing had been fulfilled yet. I will leap over. It says, leap over the families that are celebrating Pesach right there, that have blood on the doorposts. I'm going to leap over them. To leap over them means that I'm not going to kill them. I'm going to leap over them. And the house that is not celebrating Pesach, that doesn't have any blood on their doorposts, their firstborn will die. That is the leap over. The leap over of not killing you. That is what Pesach is. You understand it in Exodus chapter 12. It says, if you want for me to leap over you, for me not to kill your firstborn, I have to see the blood of a lamb that is 1 year old on the doorposts. If I see the blood, or my angel, which was him, if I see the blood of the lamb on the doorposts, that house I'll say, no more death for the firstborn. And that's how I go house by house. That was the first true fulfillment of Pesach. Well, what does that actually mean? Did it only mean that? Nothing else? No. It didn't mean that. What it meant was that at some point in time, a certain lamb would come, and that would end up, of course, this is profoundly for us, that we understand, it was going to end up with all the Jewish religion and their laws entirely. And that as long as they existed, it would condemn us all. So then it would take away the sin. Who is that lamb? It was the only one that could be God himself, the only creator that exists. That creator dressed up in humanity, made himself be called by many names: the Son of God, the Messiah, the Christ, the Lamb of God, that taketh away the sin of the world. Not the sin from the people, doesn't forgive the sin of the people. Let that be clear, that in your Bible, in chapter 1 of John, it says, this is the Lamb of God. There it is, the Lamb of God, the Lamb of Pesach, that taketh. To take away is not to forgive, it is to take away. This is the Lamb of God that taketh away the sin, not of the people, but of the world. What is sin? The violation of the law. So then what does it say? This is the Lamb of God that taketh away the violation of the law. How does it do that? The law that he gave, he annuls it entirely once he dies. So then the one that died is the one that gave the law, not the son of the giver of the law, but the one that gave the law. We understand that clearly. We've been talking about it throughout all the feasts. So then Pesach was the taking away of the guilt that could not give life to anyone in the world, not even those that would try to fulfill the law, and also not those who didn't try to fulfill the law. Now we go on to the second feast. I started the subject completely different, in a different order, let's say. In a different order than the one that I was thinking about. We hop onto another feast. So then how do I title Pesach? It is the death of the Creator, death of Yahweh. We hop on to the second feast of the 7. I changed the names. Not the names, but the numbers. But let us go strictly in biblically what it says. In Leviticus 23, the 7 feasts, aside from the Shabbat. Second feast are the unleavened bread, which is a part of Pesach. It is a unit of feast. That is Pesach, Matzot, Bikurim. 3 feasts in one with different names because they have different stages. In Matzot, it is to eat without leaven, unleavened bread for 7 days, of which Pesach enters. It's part of Pesach. What does that feast mean? What is it that they celebrate up until today? And we used to celebrate up until last year. What does it mean to eat the symbolism of bread without leaven? It says it very clearly. The leaven is the symbol of life, because leaven makes bread grow. It is the symbol of the kingdom, the new kingdom. So then, to eat without leaven, as it's defined in other texts, matzah is defined as the bread of affliction. Of course, if it has no life, it is the bread of affliction, of anguish. The bread that brings pain, of tribulation. For 7 days, we were commanded to eat that bread of tribulation, of affliction. What does that mean? It is the affliction whereby we are all subjugated, and the affliction that he himself said that at some point in time it would happen. No more than that. The tribulation of Yahweh. Simple as that. Tribulation of Yahweh. The third feast within the group of Pesach is Bikurim. Bikurim is the resurrection of Yahweh. Bikurim is the first harvest. And the first harvest, he showed us that it was him. By dying and taking away the sin of the world, he wasn't going to end up being dead because he's our creator, he's our father, and he didn't come here to die forever. But rather, he resurrects. But since he resurrects, he already eliminated the guilt of the law. That's it, it's over. That's why he died. That's why he died. So then he took away the law from on top of us, which the law would make us die eternally. The people don't understand that. The people think that they can sin, and the people cannot sin. The people can misbehave, exercise wickedness, but they can't sin, because everyone, from then on out, the sentence of eternal death is taken away. It's taken away. Life is not given, but the sentence of eternal death is taken away by placing into the disposition, when the adequate time comes, what life is. First they have to take the sentence away of death, and the sentence of death is precisely all of the law. So then, Bikurim, in one word, is resurrection, the resurrection of Yahweh. Now we go into the fifth feast, which is separated in 50 days of this group of feasts. That's what's called Bikurim, or Pentecost, which is a countdown of 50 days. During Shavuot, right? Shavuot, right? In Shavuot, it's a countdown of 50 feasts. Shavuot, Pentecost, 50 days of countdown. Shavuot is a feast that actually the Jews have their interpretation about, have their own interpretation. For them, Shavuot is the descent of Yahweh, which was when they received the Torah on Mount Sinai. So then, according to them, which I feel like it goes in accordance with the calendar, they received the Torah on that so special a day that there was fire, there was thunder, and the people got afraid, and blah, blah, blah. That day they received the Torah. Not that they received it that very day, but Moses started to receive it. So then, they called it that Shavuot means for them the descent from heaven of power, the descent of a type of wisdom or laws, which is the Torah. What does it mean for the Christians? Well, the Christian church is born because at some point in time, Yahweh, to make that church be born, because it was absolutely, he does absolutely whatever he wants. On that signal day, that Moadim or Moed, on that signal day, in the book of Acts, is found, it is told that it was 120 of the disciples that Yahweh had here on earth with the name Disciples of Jesus, they were gathered together celebrating that day. And on that day they heard a great thunder, and you know the whole story, that as if it were flames of fire descended upon them. They started to speak with special powers, and they started to speak in tongues that nobody knows if they were speaking or the others understood, whatever. But a great, huge commotion had started. That day, the Christians say the Christian church is born with the spirit of the Holy Spirit that is promised, that descends from heaven. Was that fulfilled in the sense of Shavuot? Not in my sense, and also for me, it was not the Torah, descent of the Torah or the descent of the Holy Spirit for those people, for that function. It was fulfilled on that date, but it's not the meaning of that date. For me, the meaning of that date is actually a movement which Yahweh wanted to do, because since He's the Father, in this creation of lies, He made a group which was a lie, which is Israel, with evil laws, but He created it. And then He created a different group, which is Christianity. So then along with Christianity, He didn't just create Christianity, but rather He created a new Torah. Because the old Torah is called the Old Testament for the Christians, and the new Torah is called the New Testament for the Christians, which is the guide for them. So then that Shavuot represents, the way I see it, which is a second religion based on the first one that Yahweh wanted to install in the world, in this world of lies. But it is His plan. It wasn't born by the mind of a human being, but by the mind of the Creator. He said, this is how things are going to be, and the things were that way. So then, He placed special times to do determined actions, and that is what I admire of the feasts, that He gave them to us, and He said celebrate them, but it's not what He says of celebrating or not. He gave them to us like a map. On that map we can see the story of what He has been implementing on this earth. He implemented a people of Israel, a servant dominated with the terror that if you don't serve Him and if you do that, He kills you. Then He implemented for Him to come in person to suffer as it corresponds and to die. Also implemented that He would resurrect. And He also implemented that He would have a new religion, that is the descent of the Holy Spirit, which begins and starts the Christian church. Then another feast starts, which this one already actually the Christians don't have any adequate interpretation. They do give it one, but they don't have it, and the Jews don't do that either. The Jews say that Yom Teruah, of which they changed the name, even though they say that they celebrate both things. They celebrate Rosh Hashanah and Yom Teruah, because Yom Teruah, they don't really give it too much importance, along with the name, because Yom Teruah, they only announce the arrival of the purification, which is Yom Kippur. So then Yom Teruah announces, and they say that when Yom Teruah comes, they start the 10 days of astonishment. I don't know how is translated. It's the 10 days of awe. Of admiration or astonishment, the 10 days of fear, because they start to prepare. Aside from celebrating Rosh Hashanah, they start to prepare themselves, because what cometh is the day that they consider to be the day of the final judgment, which is Yom Teruah, which is Yom Kippur. That is when they are approved or disapproved. That's the way it is. So then, in those 10 days, in those 10 days, they prepare themselves mentally so that when God does an examination, they say that in Yom Kippur every person goes before their throne and they're either approved or disapproved, just like that. Approved or disapproved. They say it's not only a day just not to eat, but also not to have sexual relations. You can't take a shower. You cannot use perfume or beautiful jewels, deodorant. If you can walk barefoot, even better. You should not sit comfortably in a chair. It has to be the most uncomfortable. You should sit on the floor in the most appropriate way, because it's the day of your maximum humiliation, because you're in the presence of God. And God will do a judgment over you, and if you, whether approved or not. Where did they get that? These are the Talmudic interpretations. So then, Rosh Hashanah, it is the beginning of the new year, but also they have the beginning of the final countdown for the final judgment. And the final judgment for them is Yom Kippur, the day of the final judgment. Very well. What does Yom Kippur, what does it mean for us? Because this is the interpretation that I understand. What does Yom Teruah mean? It is what they say? Absolutely not. No. Yom Kippur is not the day of the final judgment. Yom Kippur, you're not in the presence of God to see if you're approved or not. No. On Yom Kippur, God is in our presence. And he takes the reproval. He takes all the reproval. It's backwards. It's all backwards. This world, in the end of it all, ends up being backwards. The one in judgment is him, not us. And he shows that in the ritual. They bring 2 lambs, 2 he-goats. They don't represent a human being. In fact, in the representation of Yom Kippur, it's more than clear. Of course, maybe we see it as clear, but because we see it clear. But the rest, I understand, they don't really see it. But in the ritual of Yom Kippur, there is no representation of a human being. There are 2 he-goats. They call one Yahweh, and the other one they call him Azazel. Which of the 2 is human? Neither of the 2. No one knows who Azazel is, and the whole world knows who Yahweh is. Where's humans there? The priest only, the high priest. The rest, the people are not there. The priests are not there. They're all put away. So humans are not in judgment, but God is in judgment. And a division of God. We could say good and evil of God. We could say it's not what's correct. It's not what's correct. Because Yahweh does not mean good and Azazel means evil. No, that's not correct. But it's a division so that we understand the point of the ritual. So then, humans are not in judgment, but God is. The one that is by Yahweh is killed, slaughtered, period. The one that has the sign of Yahweh is killed. They're killed. And the blood of Yahweh is taken within, not the human blood, but the blood of Yahweh is taken within the sanctuary in a ritual. And with that blood, they cleanse, or they would cleanse the sanctuary. How could it be that the blood that stains even more, contaminates even more, will cleanse the sanctuary? Because it's a symbolism. The blood, the dead blood of Yahweh, takes away the sin from the sanctuary. It takes away the sin of the world. In the moment in which Yahweh was killed, during Pesach, he took away the sin of the world. The blood entered into the sanctuary, and the sanctuary are we. And every one. So then, in the moment in which the goat for Yahweh is killed, the blood takes away the sin from the sanctuary right in that very moment. It doesn't stay there because Yahweh resurrects in real life. So then the priest comes along and says, this has not ended yet. The blood of Yahweh killed cleanses the world from sin, takes away. Notice that in the sanctuary, the priest, supposedly, in the symbolism, he would take away the sins accumulated in the sanctuary. Very well. The blood of Yahweh takes away the sin of humans. Now, the other, which is identical, Azazel, which is a part of Yahweh, that part, no one understands it. No one understands it. We do. That part says, okay, all the sin that it took away, what do I do with it? Because it's easy to take away the sin. No, it's not easy. It's easy to say it, right? It's easy to say, Jesus took away the sin of the world, okay, and now what does he do with the sin? What does he do with the sin? Whom do we place it on? The Christians say, upon Satan. Everything goes upon Satan. And they made me, at least the Adventists, the only ones that believe this, and completely wrong, but I felt proud of believing this. The name of Azazel was that of Satan. So then Jesus would come, and they would place all the sins upon the poor Satan. And Ellen G. White had seen it in a vision, all that Jesus comes, and he places all the blame of the world upon Satan. Poor Satan. He's to blame for everything. It isn't so. It is very far from the reality. The rest of the Christians don't even know what to think with that. Some say that Azazel is actually, has to be God. And when I was an Adventist, I heard criticism that I felt at that time, as our mind grows and when it's deceived, we defend the beliefs. I would listen to certain Christian groups that said Azazel is God, because no one can do atonement for us. The Adventists say that Satan ends up atoning their sin. The Adventists are nauseous. I've heard it from Christians, blaming the Adventists by saying that since we, the Adventists, that doctrine, that Azazel is Satan, is that he ends up atoning. The one that ends up atoning is Satan, and they're right. And that I would close my eyes and says they don't understand. The one that atoned it was Christ. They blame Satan. No, the one that atones is the one that carries. So then they were right in saying, you Adventists, by believing that Azazel is the devil, you're saying that the devil atones the guilt of humanity. Do you understand what I'm saying? The thing is that no one is right except for us. Azazel is God and the only one that exists, and Azazel receives all the blame of humanity. But that is how he designed it. He made that day so that someday someone would fulfill it. Because it's all symbolism. In order for somebody to fulfill it, who fulfilled it? We did, the eternal truth. The eternal truth in the year 2024, a year ago, we made a rite in which we said all the blame must be placed upon the head of Azazel, which is Yahweh. That was a round circle in our logic, because it all started to fit in. Evidently, many people didn't want to accept that. It seemed to be terrible, horrible, complete insanity, more than blasphemy, to blame the guilt upon Yahweh. And they left. And if you look at it, we're even less every time, because the heart has not yet comprehended the marvelousness of this message, and I can't do anything any more than explaining it to you in the most brilliant way that I can, in the very symbol itself. The Creator says, blame all the guilt upon me. The only one that can carry it is me. And I will carry it. But we, who are humans, we're all a bunch of beliefs, and then we weren't really, when we say we, as the people that understood this, maybe we have not been advancing really in the measure that we've been advancing some year ago. I was checking the subjects, so I'm starting to look at the last subjects of wisdom and discipline, that it's been a year that I haven't looked at them. I would make a prayer at the beginning and one at the end. We're talking about a year ago. Now we stopped praying. That was a brutal blow. It is huge, this blow is. But it's the things that we have to understand. That we have to understand. You cannot pray to a person that wants you to put all the blame upon him, because he is saying goodbye to his creation, because the greatest work of his creation is the formation of the Messiah, which he considers to be a co-creator with him. It is the greatest thing. It is the reason of why we should make this whole creation that had to mature for 6,000 years. Man was made in the last part of the sixth day. They had to do all things that humanity has seen day by day, day by day, day by day. And the beast of the water came, and that of the land came. We know that it's Israel along with the U.S., the one of the water, Israel, and then the U.S., that of the land. All those beasts had to be created and had to be in their position of dominion before the Messiah would be made. But what was the work of the creation, the most important one? Creation of man. And all the religions will tell you that the most important creation was the creation of man. But man, in the 6 days of creation, represents something. Like each thing represents each other thing. On the moment of its apparition, the creation of man is the creation not of human beings. It is the representation of the new God, of the Son of God, of the Messiah. That is why he shows up in the last part of the 6th day, the last thing that God does. He doesn't do anything else. And I'm referring to the act of men and women. Doesn't do anything else. And he tells them, well, unto you now, it is your job to subjugate and reign and rule over the beasts. Those beasts represent all the kingdoms of the world. It is very clear once you see it, the light is made. So then, when we stopped praying, we started to prepare ourselves mentally to execute a rite that is very difficult to do, which is to blame everything completely upon the person that we've worshipped all of our lives, that we respected as the maximum, as the most pure being, as God. That being to whom we used to pray to and plead with and thank and sing to and do worship. It would bring us joy to worship, and everyone would see him. However, but that being, we should blame him for everything, and it's not easy. It's not easy. It is something which has to enter little by little to see it, reason it, because what's easy is to blame another, Satan, even yourself, because we've been trained for that. We've been programmed. We're a bunch of beliefs, and since we were little, the religions told them it is your fault. You're evil. You're a sinner. You do not deserve salvation. You are saved by grace. Not because you deserve it, without deserving anything. Those words were went and entered our mind, and they start to make us who we are, which we're nothing, that we're sinners, that we're human, faulty humans, and if somebody were to save us, it'll be just by grace. Why? Because we don't deserve it. That was bombarded into our brains ever since we're born. Ever since we were born, and it is so much as that would make us kneel before the Supreme Being and to ask, to plead, to beg, to confess, and to beg for his salvation. That subjugated us to what humanity is. Because in any version you see it, Jewish one, Muslim one, Christian one, you'll see people subjugated to that power, imploring to be forgiven and imploring for salvation by grace. To break away with that pattern and to get to the point of blaming everything upon that being, it took us some time to reprogram our mind. We had to understand many things, and most of you, of which I feel very happy and proud, understood it. Understood it. You grasped onto the concept, embraced it, and loved it, because you loved logic more of loving humans than God, because they had placed into our mind to obey God before man. To obey God before man. So then we were at some point in time, like Abraham, like Noah, they were our heroes, they were our heroes. Because they, no matter what, no matter if they had to kill all of human beings or their sons, but they were obedient to God. And our degradation, that we are nothing when we are God. I want you to understand this concept because it's part of the feast. It is part of what I tried to give you in 50 chapters. When you enter, when it enters into your mind, I am, which it's been years that I've been teaching you this, I am, that I am is what you want to be. If you say I am, and you add anything else, you as God are making that reality. And someday it'll be fulfilled. And when you say I am, and it's difficult for me to say it because it goes against the very principle that I'm teaching, but I'll say it like that. When we say I'm poor, let's say poor. You're creating a reality that sooner or later will tell you you're right, that's what you are. And it could be that, like something else, and all negative things. All negative things. When actually I taught you that you have to form a reality. This world is real, but it has something, believe it or not, that you can believe, you can create. Because if you understand the concept that I taught you, that we are gods, you start to believe it. That is related with faith, of believing that you can move a mountain. It's the same thing. The thing is that we don't believe it. The thing is that we don't believe. If you say, I am rich, and you go to sleep and you say, I am rich, and you start to believe that you're rich, you are rich. You're rich. If you say, I cannot, you're creating with your word, I cannot. I cannot. If you say, I am sick, you with your word are creating your condition. You're saying, what if you, I want you to imagine that you are the God creator, that you're Yahweh, the God creator, not anyone, the God creator. And you have so much power in your mouth that you're not going to say stupid things because it's not convenient, right? It's not convenient. So then, if you're God the creator and you have the power of God, you're going to be careful with what you say. You're not going to say, I am sick. Because if you're not, then now you will be. You will, because you're creating it. If you're some guy that says, let the land be discovered, and it's discovered out of nothing because it's created with the word, you're going to be very careful what you're creating with your words, because you already know that you have brutal power. Now the question is, why don't you believe that? Because we are divine. If you were to understand that, we exist with the very power God has. Because God is our Father, and humanity, we have the same energy that He has. Now, that it's more minute or in a different measure, it doesn't matter. We still have it. And in the Bible, if it's good for anything, it teaches you, oh, my little kitty cat, oh, Michi, Michi, Michi. If the Bible helps you in anything, helps you that faith moves mountains. And the Messiah tells you, if you were to have faith like a grain of mustard, in that sense, the faith is to believe that we are God. And I'm talking about God seriously, not being God, that we're going to someday be God. No, that we're God now. I'm God right now, and not any God. I'm the all-powerful God. What I believe with my mouth will be created. And even more if I start to think about it as if it already exists. It already exists. I'm not saying, yeah, that's fine, I want to have a new car. A new car, please. No. You want to have a new car. You have to say, I already have a new car. I have a new car. Imagine that you drive it. You go to sleep, and imagine that you drive it. Just imagine that you have it, not that you would like to have it. It doesn't work that way. God didn't say, I would like for water to go away and for it to show that land. Didn't say that. He said, let there be dry land. Let there be light. He says, I'd like for light to exist. No, it doesn't work that way. It's let there be light. And before the light was done, he imagined it and saw that it was true. We have the same power of God, the same one. I know you don't believe me. I know you don't believe me. But we do have it. That's why there are people that say, with my positiveness, positivity, which is not that, it's a power more than anything, more than magical. I do things to work in my convenience, but people say, no, I'm sick, I'm poor. They're never going to get out of there because they say it every day. They say, can't do this, can't do that. I don't have enough, can't do this and that. And God determines how will the universe work for you if you limit it. Because you have to think that it's not what's possible, but it's the impossible. That there are atoms, and I don't know if they exist. Let's suppose there are particles in the universe that are waiting for you to command. To give the command, to give it. Just like a white-robed priest says, you have this and that in this many days. And that's it. He commanded it. Or there's something invisible in the air and people get sick. Same thing. It is the power of the word. Who has the power has the word. Those who are not in the power of this world, in other words, in the power of influencing people, we cannot influence them. Those who influence them are the others because they have the power of the word. But I'm talking about power over your own life. Don't try to have power over the others, but have it over your own life. You want for things to change. Look at them like if they've already changed. Dream with the way they've already changed, and things will start to change. Things will start to get fixed. It always worked for me. I've taught you this 1,000 times over, but you forget. You forget. So then, going back, because I digress. Going back to Yom Kippur, which is the Day of Independence. We have fulfilled with something that no one has even imagined. It is to fulfill the word of the Creator. Blame everything upon me. The humanity already fulfilled killing him. They put him to death and he died on his own, it's evident. He died. But the other part of blaming him, no, the people blame themselves. Or Satan. Well, we fulfilled in Yom Kippur. What does that mean? It means what we did. It is the day of independence of the world. It'll be celebrated for all eternity. Yahweh has already programmed that day. He has programmed that day as the day of independence, and we fulfilled it, even if we're very few. Even if we have very few, we fulfill it. In the entire world, the dead generations and living ones will fulfill it because of this little handful that dared to do this. And Yom Teruah is the announcement of that. In Yom Kippur, we fulfilled it. And the very last feast is Sukkot. Sukkot represents the traveling unto the new kingdom. It is the transition that takes us to take the king. That is why I don't celebrate it. That's why I've decided not to celebrate it, because we are God, and we do not obey blindly, without understanding, or we start to do our own rules, which is what Elohim wants. If Elohim took away with his blood the commandments that would condemn us, he's also telling us now it's time for you to do your own rules. The feasts, I've annulled them in the way that I've told you. Now discover what they mean. That's why Yom Kippur is no longer a day of fasting. It's no longer a day of judgment, in which we are before God to see if we're approved or disapproved. It's not the day of forgiveness, no. It is the day of independence. It is the day in which we have placed all of our guilt of all humanity, and we placed them upon Yahweh, upon the very person that with his blood he took it away, but who was in our midst, and we had to place it somewhere. And he said, place it upon me. And that is what we did. So then Yom Kippur, there's no need to fast anymore. It is the day of celebration. It is our day of independence. In Sukkot, we'll celebrate it in the moment when we're in the new kingdom. Now we're in Sukkot. Every day of our life we're in Sukkot. So that we don't celebrate things which are happening right now. Now, if you like to celebrate it, do it. Do whatever you want. I'm telling you what I interpret. What actually it is. And then what comes next is the millennium, which is the Shabbat. And the millennium is the day, or the millennial day, of the kingdom of the Messiah, the kingdom of the Son of Man, the kingdom of those brave people who have fulfilled with the purpose of Yahweh. I want to make that very clear today, that we are not against Yahweh. We are those who are more in favor of Yahweh. We are the only ones that understand his plan, and we're the only ones that fulfill his word. The rest does not understand anything, and because of that, they can't fulfill anything. But as the scripture says precisely in Proverbs 25, that the scriptures concealed, encrypted, only the kings can understand it, which is the glory of the kings. Oh, wow. The glory of the kings is to understand the word. We understood it. And I also invite, because there is time still, all those who have not been present last year, when we placed all the blame upon Yahweh. I'll read the document again. this Thursday, on the day of our independence, when we placed all the blame upon Yahweh, and they were not present, or didn't dare, or didn't even know, but now they listen to me and have comprehended at least something. I want to be in that document. Well, in that document, we give you the opportunity of adding yourself to it. Only since today one person added themselves and I just wrote them down. I just have to write down below this video and say, my name is so-and-so. I live in, and you give the country of where you live. And you say, I want to add myself to the list. To the list of Yom Kippur, I want to add myself to the list where you signed the independence, the constitution of the new kingdom, and I'll add you. Because that's still yet to be fulfilled. Once this is fulfilled and it becomes effective, there's no need to add anyone. We have to add the citizens. Now we have those who sign, which cannot be changed. We have the... Yes, you're going to have to grab onto it. You have those who in this moment, they can add themselves. And then later will be the citizens. And the joyful citizens will say, I want to be a part of this kingdom. I want to be a part of this kingdom. It is what I had a dream with my whole life. It's what I hoped for from Hashem. It is what I waited from Allah. All that, this is our God. We have awaited him and he will save us, and all the rest. The gods which we have served are dead. In the sense of adoration, they are dead. They shall not resurrect. That is the spirit of the feast. It's simple. There's one left that it's Christmas, that we celebrate with lots of joy, Christmas, because it is when Yahweh becomes flesh. It is the conception in humanity of Yahweh. It is the only feast that is left, but you understand it perfectly well. So then I fix them, or have placed a different order. First, Christmas, Hanukkah, which is the same feast. Christmas, Hanukkah, which is the incarnation of Yahweh. It is not when he's born, but when he becomes, when he's begotten 9 days prior. And it, give or take, goes to Christmas. It coincides. It's the last week of December. Give or take there, because Yahweh later would be born later in the Feast of Autumn. So then perfectly well, the feasts, like we've already studied, it fits in perfectly well. Not the birth thereof, but the inception in Mary. So then, the first feast, Christmas, Hanukkah, which is the incarnation of Yahweh. That is why we celebrate it. Second feast, Pesach, which is the death of Yahweh. Third feast, Matzot, which is the tribulation of Yahweh. Fourth feast is the resurrection of Yahweh, Bikurim. Fifth feast, Shavuot, is a new religion, a New Testament. What's born is Christianity. Sixth feast, Shom Teruah. Shom Teruah is a feast that announces that the Messiah is coming. That announces that the new kingdom will be signed, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence. Yom Kippur. It'll become the most marvelous feast of them all, which is the Day of Independence, which we signed. We celebrated barely now. I didn't even notice that it was the Day of Independence when we signed it. We were signing a document. Then I noticed that it was our Day of Independence. Yom Kippur, it is the constitution of a new kingdom, the constitution of the Messiah. Sukkot will be a reminder of the time which takes us to the taking over the new kingdom, and it will be celebrated after, when we're in the new kingdom already. And I'm sure that it'll be spectacular, because we'll do great feasts, especially us, those who signed these documents, to gather together, all of us, and with the rest of the world, which will want to absolutely follow us. You can't imagine what this will be. You just can't imagine what this will be. But in Sukkot, we will want to gather together and celebrate the time that we were here and celebrate the time that was hard for us. That is what Sukkot is. Feast number 9, Pesach. Why Pesach again? Because Pesach is a feast which has already been fulfilled with the death of Yahweh, but also, Yahweh in the form of the Messiah said that it was the adequate time for a glorification of the Messiah. Will this be so? We don't know until it actually happens, but there are 2 texts, if there aren't more, that in the time of the glorification of the Messiah would be during Pesach. That is why I placed it as, like, it makes no sense as Pesach, the death of Yahweh, but it makes sense for a future glorification of the Messiah. And the date or the feast number 10, Shabbat, it's the 7th millennium. I've explained it. First thing I explained, which is the kingdom of the Messiah and the rest of Yahweh. For me, it extends more than 1,000 years. For me, those 1,000 years are symbolic. It's not that like we have 6 days of work and a Shabbat. And once again, a Shabbat and another 6 days and then another Shabbat. No, that's not the way I see it. It's not that the week will be repeated in circles, or else we would start a new creation for 6 days. It would be a complete disaster, and then for the Shabbat to come for Yahweh to rest. No, I see it this week as an eternal one. The 6,000 years have passed, and the Shabbat is the culmination of the creation, which there it is understood as all eternity. Not that once again we start the 6 days in order for another 6 days for there to be another Shabbat. No, I understand it this way. Yahweh says, no, I have a different plan. We'll see it later. The way I understand it now, the 6,000 years cannot be repeated, and the Shabbat that we're going to enter to is all in eternity, which is the complete reigning. What is it? I understand that because the Bible makes me understand it that way. When Yahweh gives the reign forever, it is forever, it's eternal. In Psalms 2, the same thing. I inherit and I give you the nations as an inheritance. It's not that it's taken away, it's forever. And we see this in different places, that what the Son receives is forever. Absolutely forever. So then, there is no vicious cycle that, 1,000 years only, then I take it away, and we start over a tribulation for 6 years. No, it isn't so. So then the Shabbat, under my point of view, represents eternity. The rest without limit of the Messiah, but for benefit of them all, for the benefit of everyone. And there you have the 10 feasts, and this is this subject, which has taken us 50 chapters, is summed up in what I have just taught you today. That is how it's summed up. Of what is the spirit of the feasts? Those events are the ones which the Creator placed the date on. And many stages thereof have been fulfilling, but there's one very special in every date. And that one is the sense that we look for in the spirit of the feast. For us, the most important of them all, you already know, is Yom Kippur. Because it is the end, it is the independence, it is the leap over that Yahweh needed in order for the kingdom of the Messiah to begin. It has already begun. It cannot be seen. It cannot be seen yet. And that is when the power of His Word enters into the maximum splendor. You cannot doubt for a minute nor say, you can do so, but it's not what I advise you. It's not convenient of saying, let's see what happens. No. The Messiah is here. The Messiah reigns today. The reign of the Messiah is here. It's already here. This is the reign of the Messiah. And the world will see it in the time that is appropriate. What we do know is that it's a very short time that's left. Since Boca plays today, and I didn't want to torment you already with another subject of the spirit of the feasts, that is today's subject, the spirit of the feasts. Everything we've talked about, justice, grace, and faith, I was going to lengthen it a bit more today with certain things, but maybe I'll mix it a bit more with the next Shabbat when we again take up the Wisdom and Discipline series. And I'm talking about that there's some questions that are very, very, very interesting. We have the questions that almost all related with sex. I mean, a whole bunch of them. The people back then really wanted to know, and I didn't answer any of them. How much is virginity worth? What happens if we accept gay people on the new earth? Are they going to go back to being straight? There's a whole bunch of questions that I looked at them. I'm like, should I answer that? I'm here to answer all the questions. So if you have questions, I'll add in the list below. I have a whole bunch of questions already. If you have questions for me, ask me in my Facebook as a DM, because I treat these questions anonymously. Don't ask me on my timeline. I'll delete it. There are people, and I understand that there's people that really don't know how to use Facebook, but it's a different to write to me on my timeline, and a different thing is to DM me. Send me a DM with the questions if you have them, and I'll add you. This time, we'll have lots of time to develop wisdom and discipline. First of all, because it's fun. Second of all, because we have to learn so many things. Because if we're here in this time of waiting, we're going to learn. There are certain things that I want for you to take into account, such as a rule. Because the hidden things, they're hidden for a reason. They're hidden for a reason. It's good to discover them, but sometimes it's good that for some time they remain that way. That's why they are occult. What do I mean with this that nobody understood a thing with? What I mean is that this whole subject and everything that I'm giving about Yahweh, that we've said the worst of the worst about him, it'll be enclosed in the subject. Once we study wisdom and discipline, I'll give a focus such as that you already understand everything we've said here. I'm not going to be repeating because Yahweh is the son of a bitch, because Yahweh is the worst thing there is. Remember that he's the father of lies. Remember he's the assassin. No. Because or else you're not going to understand the Bible. The Bible is understood by what Yahweh is. And Yahweh is still the most intelligent and creator of us. And aside from that, we have the mind of Yahweh. And if Yahweh acts the way he does, it means that we also act that way. That is why we have all these tendencies. So then, if Yahweh is teaching us something, he's teaching us to contain our impulses, to contain them. Do we have the same impulses as he does? Of course. The apple does not fall far from the tree, but it's not. I'm not going to be saying, remember that Yahweh. No, we've already understood that. We've already comprehended that, who Yahweh is. The most important thing about Yahweh is that he's our creator. He's still our creator. He is still our creator. And we still have fear for him. That is why the beginning of wisdom is the fear of Yahweh. Remember that we're going to start, because I'm going to have to start to grab Proverbs once again, or else you won't understand not even the very principle of wisdom, because the principle of wisdom is the fear of Yahweh. And if you have lost the fear of Yahweh, then you're not going to understand anything. Because you're going to be saying, Yahweh, what a son of a bitch. Yeah, yeah. No. No. That's why I'm saying that there are things like this that has been occult from the people. Also, you have to learn to put it aside. Absolutely. We are following his creation. We're not even against or in rebellion. We're in favor of his creation, in favor of him to give the power to his son. We're in favor of everything that he's taught us. So then the fear of Yahweh actually grows in us, believe it or not. Because the fear of Yahweh has made us say that he is to blame for everything. That is the true fear, to understand the plan of Yahweh. I want you to keep that in mind, because I'm not going to be repeating in all the subjects, in every subject, Yahweh's this, Yahweh's that. No, I'm going to speak about Yahweh, and you're going to comprehend who Yahweh is, who's our God. You already have that in our mind. There's no need for me to always be saying it, because the sense of what we're trying to study is lost. You understand what I'm saying? We cannot study prophecy saying Yahweh, yeah, but remember, he's a liar. That's why we won't study anything. No. The principal focus is that Yahweh is our creator. So then we go back to that focus without losing everything that we have studied. But Yahweh, for us, is still our only God. And we're not going to have any other God above us. Even if we're God, he is our God. And he'll always be so. Always. Whether he leaves, comes back, he'll always be so. So then, I want you to take that into account. That it'll change. Maybe I'll say some things in order to make you laugh. But if I don't change this mode, people that come from outside that don't understand the thing, actually, they're going to say, these people are rather absolutely blasphemous. So then there's no way of studying scripture if I'm always saying things against God. Things that have had their place in these subjects, but from here on out, I want you to keep it in mind to understand many things. That is how a wise man acts. Doesn't need people to get things repeated for them. He designed it that way. He designed it that way. We're not against Yahweh. We're in favor of Yahweh. Yahweh is our Father, period. Now, whether we have certain differences of how he acted, those differences will be fixed the day that we comprehend more things, but we're in favor of Yahweh, not against Yahweh. And now I'm going to go make my asado quickly, and then I'm going to go watch the game of Boca. We are those crazies. Do you know it, my friends? We are crazy because we think that there is an eternal justice, which is called to rule the world. We are crazy because we think that all men are born the same and equal. That the same as in religion as in politics, they have rights and uniform duties in the eyes of heaven. We are crazy because we think that all peoples are free and sovereign, and that there's no more legitimacy or politics in the world than that which proceeds from his wills. We are crazy because we think that the kingdom of reason shall come someday, and it's already come. It's already been established. The kingdom of reason. We are crazy because we don't believe that the tyrants, the imposture, and the infamy will rule eternally upon the earth. We are crazy, for we do not wish to believe that there's nothing in the world that is positive and perpetual outside of the chains, the cannons, the lead, and crime. We are crazy because we enjoy that the chickens lose. We are crazy because we are waiting for Boca to win another Libertadores Cup, to be champions of the Argentinian championship because we're the best. That is why we're crazy, yes. And if that's why we're crazy, I am filled with pride of being crazy in that way and for you. I become ennobled with the insanity of believing the way I believe, that a grave is dug. Better said, that a hell is open for our tyrants, that the liberty cometh, that the truth cometh, that justice cometh, that the reign of the people cometh and draweth nigh, that a huge epoch will begin and everything, because we, the eternal truth, signed the Constitution of the liberty entirely of the world. That's why we're crazy, because we already have a day of independence, which is Yom Kippur, which our Creator, our Father, gave it to us. He called it Yom Kippur, but it is the day of the independence. Suck at the liberty's breast. She will always be there. You will always carry her within the heart. They may corrupt you. You may even forget. But she is always there. Yesterday I had a dream with the hungry, the crazies, those who left, those are in prison. Today I arose singing this song, which has been written time ago. It is necessary to sing it once again, one more time. The destiny is written. The end is inevitable. A nation has been born in a day. And that day was Yom Kippur 2024. God, the true God, is Argentinian. Let's go, the eternal truth.
Semper Fi.
We'll never forget that. Semper Fi. Always faithful to the truth, always faithful to the justice. And you, all of my friends, who are always faithful, loyal, will be a part of this new kingdom, which is about to begin. This message is not a promise. It is a reality that has been established. The Messiah is on earth and has already established this kingdom. Hallelujah to every one of you. Long live LVE, long live Independence Day. This Thursday, we shall gather together a little bit to read that Constitution, to add new names, and to wish them a very prosperous year that awaits this earth. But I want you to bear in mind and record it in fire. The Messiah is here, and the constitution of the kingdom has already begun. Hallelujah to every one of you. If you have comprehended the subject and you like it, give us a like and add a comment, because that message makes you more positive. It reaffirms you. I do not want for you to believe it. I want you to see it and feel it, because it already exists. Hallelujah to every one of you.